To capture the attention of someone scrolling through their newsfeed is a privilege. Because let's think about a newsfeed. There is so much stuff coming along. Well, what's going to make them stop? Relatability when you're marketing is hugely important. In other words, people buy people first, and then they buy what comes with them. In terms of considering your targeted audience, just as important as it is to be able to describe their current position, their pain, the problem they're trying to solve, you've got to be able to anticipate, well, what's their desired position? Do you know, a person who's short on time desires more time.
One key piece of advice would you like to give to everybody watching and listening to?
Well, my advice to everyone is not everything works first go. And you might try 1, 2, 3, forays into creating ads. You might put some money into it and you go, oh, it doesn't work. And so many people quit when they're that close to success.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Mark Blundell, and he's a specialist coach, mentor, and strategist to people in business, and he's the top 12 ad creators of Meta and a personal visit from the Meta Global Creative Lead. He's a consultant and speaker specializing in helping ambitious businesses drive growth through proven webinar, content and advertising strategies, with his clients having generated over $1 billion in sales. And Mark shows businesses the best ways to pitching their services to potential clients and referrers. And the businesses using unique strategy of client engagement consistently have the highest conversion rate of Meta's platforms of Facebook and Instagram. And he has presented his ideas and strategies to over 20,000 people across the world. And he has coached many of the highest producing mortgage brokers, real estate agents, accountants, lawyers, and business people. Welcome, Mark, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you, Athin. That's quite the introduction. Thank you.
Definitely, you're welcome, mate. You've achieved so much, and I'm looking forward to getting it stuck into it today. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing show for everyone watching and listening. You are a successful entrepreneur, so for those people that know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a bit more about you and your journey.
Okay, so I started life as a life insurance salesperson over 40 years ago, selling life insurance policies and superannuation policies to people, talking about their future. And while I enjoyed that, I did that for a number of years, I ventured into the role of replicating some of the success that I had in that journey in my formative years. And after about 10 years or so of some of the successes that I've achieved, or I achieved at that time, I started to put a toe in the water, trying to replicate and coach and mentor a lot of people in the financial services industry, the property industry, other service-related type industries, and teach them about the art of effectively communicating and engaging with people. And so these people had a great offer, but often their challenge was not making enough sales. And it wasn't that their offer was bad, and it wasn't that their service was bad. What they had a problem with is connecting at an emotive level with the very people who needed what they were offering for sale. And so I developed that type of consulting business. I spoke around the world on this subject, and then I ventured probably around 10 years ago into the digital space and took all that I'd learnt and then had to learn some more about the digital space. So it's very, very different. The mechanisms by which we communicate online are very different to the way in which we communicate maybe face to face, in terms of if we're trying to pitch our offer. And so I developed a number of training programs and mentoring programs, and then ventured into the advertising side of creating video ads that effectively harnessed all these attributes that I'd been teaching people about for so many years. And then my ads started to gain a lot of traction for a lot of the clients that I produced them for. The video ads, they were highly emotive. They spoke directly to the existing narrative of the target audience, and their conversion rates were humbly phenomenal in terms of what they were able to achieve. And a lot of these people I worked with went on to some amazing success. But fundamentally, what I love to do, Athin, is add value to people's lives. And more important than anything, the money, the accolades, to me, I think my true sense of purpose is making some sort of valuable contribution to someone's life. And I think that is the greatest joy that anyone can accomplish in whatever their life's purpose is.
Yeah, love it, Mark. So much you've achieved there, and I love the giving back and connecting to people. I definitely share that value. It's very rewarding, and to be able to help people in whatever way that we can do with our gifts that you've learned. And I love that unique system that you talked about, right? So, and I think that's the challenge with most people. They're like, hey, I want to grow my business. Like, how do I do it? They don't really understand it, and they just, throw things at the wall, or maybe they get a standard marketing agency or someone that's early that's done a course or something like that, and then they burn money and things, and they're like, oh, why isn't it working? Because they don't really understand the crux of marketing, right? What's actually going to move the needle to get people to buy into what you're doing, and move them through a process, right? So if you want to just, from let's call it helicopter view or something of marketing, how would you see for people to understand going, this is where we need to start, this is the way you need to think about marketing, even from a mindset perspective of going, this is how we're going to create something that's going to be an ecosystem that's going to create success, in your business? Yeah.
Well, first of all, you've got to start with an offer that sells. So in some practical sense, you need to have some proof of concept. So you need to have made some sales in, if we call it, the analog way. And so proof of concept first must exist. Some people are just starting out. Well, they need to get proof of concept first and maybe do it the hard way, face-to-face, making calls, going to see people and observing their reactions to their offer. But once you have proof of concept, in other words, you've sold a few of whatever it is, your service or your product, once you have that, then you've got to think to yourself, well, how can I amplify the small success that I've got? The only mechanism that you have to do that is to let more people know it exists. And what happens is, when people understand that I need to advertise, I need to market, I need to email people, I need to post reels, I need to do videos, I need to do something. But this is where they get lost. And what a lot of people do is spend time trying to promote the attributes of their service. This is my service. This is what it does. This is how good it is. This is why it's better than something else. Or this is my unique selling proposition. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're talking from their perspective. And the mistake is you've got to take the perspective of the listener, because that's all that counts. And so the crafting of an effective marketing message starts with the thought of, how do I interrupt an existing narrative that exists in my target audience? So this isn't the process of, if I blast out enough crap or story or whatever out there, hopefully someone will grab onto it. This is starting out with visualizing and thinking very intentively about, who am I trying to attract? What are the ingredients that must exist in my targeted customer if there's the crucible of success? What are the key ingredients? What's their age? How does their life function? What are the problems that they encounter? Now, when you think about a problem, no one buys anything other than to solve a problem, whether the problem's based out of desire or discomfort. No one buys anything other from those two attributes. And so you've got to have a deep dive and go, okay, what's the problem that my service solves? And what are the symptoms of that problem in the customer's life? In other words, how does this problem manifest in their life? Does it keep them awake at night? Does it stop them doing things that they would otherwise like to do? Does it reduce their available bandwidth to do something? Does it detract in some way, of their normal operational life? And is the person I'm trying to attract, and this is really important, of all the available audience, so you might offer a widget for sale that solves a specific problem, and you might think the global attentiveness of who this problem could solve is massive, right? But you can't market at that massive level. What you've got to think is, well, while this problem might exist in so many people's lives and my service can solve it, who are or what are the specific attributes, personality-wise and emotionally, that exist in my target audience's persona? And so the target audience has to be optimistic for most of the time. So you're now thinking about a particular type of person, right? And when you're creating a marketing message, you've got to think, well, what motivates an optimistic person? What do I have to say about this problem? Now, there are two key attributes when you market. One is getting to the point really quickly. What's the problem? Well, the problem that exists in my customer's mind is X. This is how the problem resonates in their life. So let's just say we're talking about a couple, who might be middle-aged, living in suburbia, who've got a couple of kids, they've got a joint, let's say, household income of an average income, and they aspire to provide their children with the best sort of life they can. And so let's just say your product provides them with an opportunity of saving them time on something, or saving them money. Now, if you think about most people, what do most people want? Most people want more money and they want more time. That's what most people want. And they want to live a better lifestyle than the one they've got at the moment. That's what keeps them yearning and driving. And so your marketing message has to land there, right? It needs to say, I see your problem. Your problem, if we agitate it, resonates in your life like this. To which you can anticipate a response in your targeted audience's mind by going, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what I was just thinking about. Like, Athin, isn't it fantastic when you have a conversation with somebody and you're just chatting away and they go, you know what, I was just thinking about that. You think about that feeling of that person who goes, I was just thinking about that. Like, it's almost like there's some magic occurs. Well, with a bit of thought, you can cause that emotion to occur in your targeted audience's mind, whether they're driving in their car, listening to some ad, or online, or scrolling in bed at night, or whatever. What you want your ad to do is to inject that feeling inside of them. Now, when you can emotively create different feelings inside of them, it attracts their attention subconsciously. Subconsciously, their dialogue is, I know what that feels like. And so relatability when you're marketing is hugely important. In other words, people buy people first, and then they buy what comes with them. So you can't build trust with someone, which is what we need in a transaction, unless the seller or the vendor or the person creating the offer can demonstrate, I understand you. I know what you're feeling. I know the problem you're encountering. And so the front end of an ad must do that. And when it does that, you connect. You stand out from everyone else who's going with a loud hailer, if you like, hey, this is my product, and trying to amplify it that way. You connect on an emotive level. You draw somebody in, right? And so once you have their attention, then you can talk more about the problem. And you can say to them, hey, the problem that you found yourself in is normal. It's not just you. It's common. And you know what? It's not really your fault. So you don't denigrate the person for having the problem. And then you bring them the fact that there's good news There's a solution to the problem, which is your service or your product, right? And you say, I can do this for you. Now, in terms of considering your targeted audience, just as important as it is to be able to describe their current position, their pain, the problem they're trying to solve, you've got to be able to anticipate, well, what's their desired position? Do you know, a person who's short on time desires more time. A person who sees a lack of money desires more money. It's like we go back to that suburban couple. They might go, well, we'd love to give young Mary the opportunity of learning piano. And because she's gifted, we see a gift or a talent inside of her around music. However, our income doesn't provide the means to pay for weekly piano lessons. So the problem is not enough money in the household budget to do those emotive things that a parent would probably want to do with their child. So we agitate that pain point and bring it to a personal level, and we go, that's okay. But we need to describe the desired position in marketing. And so what's the desired position? Desired positions for an audience that you're marketing come in pictures, not in words. And so the desired position for that couple is a picture, almost like a movie in their mind, where they're seeing young Mary being coached by a music tutor in front of a piano. And if you can describe that back to them, all of a sudden we trigger another emotion, which is, wow, I want that, right? Now, when we can do that to a targeted customer and take them from present position, pain points, agitation, problem naming, educate them on, well, there's an alternative, there's a solution, this is how I can achieve that solution for you, and then we can describe the desired position, Mary, tutor, piano, and then go, if you'd like that, I can help you to get there. What you do is you shift from the normal selling paradigm and you create an emotive environment where the person goes, I want that. Now, if you look at some of the top salespeople in any organisation who are involved in making sales by interacting directly with people, the people who make the most sales are able to connect with people at an emotive level. And the reason why they make so many sales, of course, is their work ethic and their drive and all of those sorts of things. But all things being equal, it's their ability to connect at that level. Now, the percentage of people that do that is very small compared to the whole, sales force, if you like. Because the rest of the sales force is trying to market their product and pitching and pitching and pitching and speaking in a language that doesn't quite resonate with their target audience. And that's the key to creating a successful marketing campaign in a nutshell.
Yeah, amazing. There's so much gold that you just shared with us there. And I think, like people buy off emotion and reinforce with logic, right? So that's what I talk about. And I love that emotive part. I think one thing that I'd love to go a little bit deeper on is around the problem, right? Because I think people may think they know the problem or, the way it's in. So what are some tips of ways that they can, whether it's testing or understanding the different problems, because it could be multiple problems that's happening, right, depending on what they're offering as a product or service. So what's some tips that you can give us on thinking about that problem so we can really get to the depth of what we're actually solving? Yeah,
I get you. So let's choose an industry, like just as a reference point. Let's call it, you name an industry.
Name an industry. Well, I know you've done a lot of stuff in the property industry,
okay,
right?
So say real estate agents, right?
Yep.
So a real estate agent's main goal is to get listings. Okay? Now, someone selling their home, what's their desire? Their desire is to get the best possible price they can for their home in a relatively short space of time, so with the least amount of pain, and when they're looking to engage a real estate agent, they're looking for a sense of confidence that the person they choose to sell their home, they need to have a belief in them that this is the man or this is the woman, the real estate agent, that I can trust to go out into the marketplace and go and find that one person who's going to walk into my property and go, I love it, I've got to have it, right? They're the ones most likely to pay the highest price, of course, through a qualification process. Okay, so when you think about the transaction between real estate agent and vendor, what is the problem? Okay, so the problem is lack of trust, lack of confidence, lack of knowledge, right? Lack of feeling secure, lack of knowing what steps to take. Because for the vendor, there are so many different options. There are so many real estate agents all saying the same thing, essentially. So a lack of clarity. Now, a lack of clarity will always cause confusion in any customer, always, a lack of clarity. And so, while the salesperson can anticipate, well, here are what I could anticipate the problems associated with my potential vendor that I'm trying to get a listing on, there are probably other problems that are unique to that particular person. Now, without asking them questions and going on a curious dive through conversation, you're never going to find that out. And so what a lot of salespeople, they're taught in sales training sessions, ask this, ask that, ask the other, but that's all superficial. And like you now, in your questioning to me, you go, let's go a step deeper. It's a great metaphor for what people should do in a sales transaction. Okay, we've heard the surface level, now let's go deeper. And so, questions about the problem. Okay, so how long have you been thinking about selling your house for? What steps have you taken so far in anticipation to selling? What's gone on in your life recently, as opposed to a month ago, that caused you to make contact with me today? What would be the consequences of not selling your home? When you sell your home, tell me what you want to do next. Why is that important to you? What can you do in your next step that you can't do in your current one? Going deeper into the problem, you gain insightfulness, which allows you to mould your presentation and your pitch in a way that the person feels it's uniquely crafted for them, even though the real estate agent is following the same steps that they would in any other appointment. By asking insightful questions and just taking a moment to go, hang on, don't start your sales pitch yet, don't bring out all your pie charts and market shares and recent sales in the area, and forget that. Take a moment to invest in the other person. Go on an exploration on what's going on for them, because their emotive reactions and sensations will govern what steps they take. And if you don't do a deep dive, you divorce yourself from any opportunity of successfully engaging at that deep emotive level. And so the analysis of the problem needs to be identified through deeper questioning.
Yeah, I love that. That's so much gold there. So let's go to the next level now, right? So we understand the problem really well. We've got a good offer, in what we're doing. And if we use that example, we want to get it to more eyeballs, right? And this is where the advertising comes in. And you're obviously one of the top, 12, on the platform of Meta, Facebook and Instagram, the biggest, ad generating platforms in the world. So how do we then do that, right? Because I know you're big on video as an example. What are some tips that you can give? Because you're getting the highest conversions. You're the one that's changing the game. I know there could be complexity, but if we just simplify for people, what can we put out there that's going to make a difference? In getting more eyeballs, more attention, like you talked about, onto us, so that we can then start to build more of that trust and move them along a journey.
Yeah, I got you. Look. The first starting point must be to capture the attention of someone scrolling through their newsfeed is a privilege. Because let's think about a newsfeed. There is so much stuff coming along. Well, what's going to make them stop? And if they don't stop, it doesn't matter how good your message is, it'll never be heard. So what we've got to think about when we're creating an ad is break it down into steps. Imagine the whole ad as an assembly line where each former step just acts as a scaffolding to the next one. And the first task in any ad is, how do I capture attention? And often that's described as the hook. Now, if you think about a lot of people who advertised, or who might create reels. They might go, I need to put more reels out there. And they'll start out by going, hi, my name's Mark Blundell, and I thought I'd get on here to talk a little bit about this. Now, the person watching doesn't care about any of that. The person watching only cares about one thing, and that's them. Now, that doesn't mean they're egotistical or anything like that. It's just a fact of life that a person has this inbuilt scenario, almost like a framework that says, why can I avoid watching this? Or what's the reason why I don't want to watch this, right? That's really someone's standing position. So when we create an ad, we've got to create a hook that stops them, that almost compels them to look. And so if you don't provoke in the first 3 seconds of any video, someone won't stop. Now, I often describe this in this way. Now, I don't know how many people have the name Athin, but a lot of people have the name Mark. And can you imagine me standing outside of a footy stadium before the gates open? There's crowds around. And imagine just some random person yells out, "Hey, Mark!" What's going to happen with me? I'm going to go like this. Now, they may not have been calling out to me at all. They could have been calling out to another Mark. But it's going to capture my attention. Why? Because it's relevant to me. So your start of your ad has to produce the same effect. And generally, there are a number of ways of grabbing a good hook or someone's attention. Describing the problem. Do you think that? Asking, what's your opinion? Or posing a question like, why is it that? It draws people in to the conversation. So I might say to you, Athin, let's just say I'm advertising services to help podcasters grow their audience. And I might go, why is it that some podcasters who invest the same money in their equipment, get fantastic guests, get extraordinary listener numbers, while others who put in the same effort struggle to get more than their family and friends to give them a thumbs up? So can you see how that hook grabs the podcaster in? Because the podcaster goes, I want to know the answer to that question. I don't know. Because obviously we're pitching to the podcaster who wants to grow their audience here, not to the person that's successful. And so using a successful hook in a video ad at the start brings them in, right? So we've got to do that. Then once the person's in, they want satisfaction for the curiosity. And so if you've grabbed them in, they want the answer to that. But what you need to do is, at this point, don't give them the answer. Agitate the desire for the answer even stronger. So nominate, give more information about that problem. So why is it some podcasters get huge audiences and while others don't? So let's describe the situation even further. Let's agitate the problem. Some podcasters seemingly are able to land guests with consummate ease, while others hunt for the same guests and get fobbed off. Mate, I'm too busy. Look, you don't have enough following, or I'm not going to, I don't have the time. So now you're talking about the problem with greater depth, and what you're demonstrating is your authority in the space. This person knows the intimate details about what my struggle is. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Right. So now I have their attention. They're going, all of a sudden, this person I'm watching on this video has a sense of authority. They seem to know what they're talking about, and they've identified a deep emotive problem that I can't solve. So why is it? Now, let's just say my service simply writes email approaches to podcast guests. Let's just say that's what I'm selling, right? I can help you craft a pitch that makes your potential podcast guests say yes. Okay? So I might go, and what they don't realise is there's nothing wrong with the podcast and the way they structure it. Their approach at the very beginning is incorrect. They say things like, it would be a pleasure. They beg, they request. Whereas if they come from a position of strength, the podcast guest can only say yes. So what I've done is I haven't told them in the ad how to solve the problem. I've told them what to do to solve the problem, which intensifies. What do you think it intensifies?
Yeah, it intensifies the desire.
100%,
yeah.
Right? And we want to intensify that, so we're drawing the person in even further. We now have their attention, right? They want to learn more. So the next thing we need to do is offer a solution. And the solution comes from, and we have to describe what it looks like, not how to do it. When you have the right solution, what you're able to do is put your potential podcast guest in a mindset where they think it's valuable to join your podcast. All right? So the podcaster goes, yeah, I want that. Now the podcaster will be thinking, yeah, but I've only got a small audience. I'm only a one-man show. I've only just done 4 episodes. How do I overcome that? So the next part of the ad has to overcome the anticipated objections, right? Now, the way we do that is through our authority. I've helped hundreds or dozens of fledgling podcasters to grow their audience from, 10 people, and I would make a joke about a small audience now, because injecting a bit of humour, right, lightens the heaviness of the subject to go, it's fine, we can fix this. So I might say, with the right approach, I've helped many fledgling podcasters go from just having their mum, their sister, their next door neighbour and their grandmother listening to their podcasts to having audiences of 1,000, 2,000 or even 5,000 people download each episode. So can you see I've taken them from present position to desired position? And then I go the solution. And the way I've achieved that is by understanding that the one key weapon to grow a podcast is the correct approach. Now, what's your offer? I might say, I'm hosting a live webinar where I'm going to show fledgling podcasters how to grow their audience from their brother, sister, next door neighbour and grandmother to downloads of 1,000, 3,000 or 5,000 people. And I'm going to walk them through the exact steps of how to get the right guests that bring their own audiences to you. And I'm going to walk you through those steps in 60 minutes. In this webinar, you're going to learn how to target key personalities who have massive audiences that can help lift your listenership. How to capture their attention when there are a number of gatekeepers that stand in front of them, and how to bring your podcast guest to your podcast with an enthusiasm that's automatically going to grow the listenership. So I've gone, this is what my service is going to do. They go, I want that. I want that. And so as a consequence, they attend the presentation or a one-on-one meeting or whatever it is that you're trying to sell. And so that's how the video ad works. Now, what I haven't done is sold the actual email writing process, which is really my product. And so the mistake people make is they sell the product when you don't really have to even reference the product at all. Does that make sense? Yeah,
definitely. That was amazing. I love the breakdown, and yeah, that attention part is the most important, because if you can't get their attention, then there's no point. The whole thing's is a waste of money. So I love that thing. One last question. I guess a lot of people now are focusing more on the personal brand, right? And you talked about people buying people, which is there now. Some people want to be building that and show themselves in front of camera. Others do not. There are business brands. There's AI, coming into things now, which is getting things a bit more interesting as well. So I'd love to know, because you're obviously in the, close in with Meta. They're doing a lot of stuff in that space. There's a lot of, different things going out there of how people are wanting to change and cut through the noise. I'd love to just know your thoughts on that process of how do we get involved? Can we get AI to help us, in what we're doing here, and maybe where you think it's going to move to, in the future as it keeps building?
Yeah, got you. Look, it's a great subject, and the development of AI from the early days of ChatGPT to the things that we can do now are amazing, and they're going to continue to grow. So in my meeting with the global creative lead of Meta, he spoke to me about that's the direction Meta wants to go. But at the time of our meeting, he said, we don't have any data at all on this, that this is going to work. We just feel that this is the direction it's going to go. And to his surprise, I said to him, look, I've mucked around with this stuff already, and I've made ads where I've created clone avatars of my clients because they're too busy to stand in front of a camera. And I've cloned them and their voice and created ads. And he said, have you? And I said, yes. Did they work? And I said, in some cases, they work better than the real thing, because I was able to get the perfect nuance, flex, and tonality associated with the way they said something that they probably naturally wouldn't have said, right? And he said, can you show me? And I showed him the ad, and he said, that is amazing. And then he said to me, do you think an AI avatar clone could sell products? And I said, yes, they could sell. I know they can sell services. He said, how do you know? And I said, well, because I've done that too. And he said, tell me, what have you done? I said, well, I created a short 5-minute VSL that I used in a retargeting campaign for people who had attended the webinar. And the offer was a $1,500 masterclass or something like that. And I made a 5-minute video that actually just followed the same steps that I've described, right? But the end of the offer was, click on this button, buy your seat to the masterclass. And I said, in a month, it made about $100,000 in sales. And he said, you serious? I said, yes. He said, can you show me? And I showed him the video. And this was and I didn't know this was going to happen. I can tell you, I don't like the spotlight. I don't need pats on the back. I just love what I do. But he stood up and he shook my hand and he said, that Mark Blundell is a world first. He said to me, what you've just done in an advertising sense is equivalent to Elon Musk landing rockets back on Earth. He said, that is amazing. So in terms of your question where it's going, I took everything's a learning process. What I took from that meeting is, hey, it's worth investing more energy in this. And so I came across a client who was reluctant to get on camera herself. She wanted to provide life coaching to middle-aged women aged between 45 and 60 who'd, were career-type people, balancing relationships, balancing families and all of that. And this client had a lot to say about this, right? But was reluctant to get on camera for a number of reasons that I think most people confront. I don't like the way I look, I don't like the way I sound, I'm shy, all of those normal things. And I said, why don't we create an AI avatar of you? Why don't we name this person, position this person? And I said, I bet you within 3 months, if you keep producing a reel every single day around this subject matter, using this AI avatar, you'll have 10,000 followers. And she looked at me and said, that's impossible. I said, I promise you we can do that. And so I built an AI reel, a 90-second reel, and we named this avatar Erin Voss, I should say, AERINVOSS. Your followers can go and look at the reels. And they're all AI avatars. And I made the first reel for her. And to her credit, she's gone on and made a reel every single day. 6 weeks in, if you go and look now at the time of us recording, she's got 4,500 followers. Now, it's extraordinary. Now, let me tell you what's fantastic about that. Part of my consulting advice to her was when you get to 10,000, you can start to go to different manufacturers, products, labels, and go, I can give you brand exposure using my avatar. So maybe aligned with this particular avatar we'd created, there would be healthcare products, there would be beauty products, there would be fashion accessories that she could actively go to and do commercial agreements with them and promote handbags, lipsticks, makeup, all of those sorts of things within the realm of this AI avatar that she's created. Now, I think that is an extraordinary leap forward for someone who is otherwise a bit lacking in self-confidence, lacking in surety. And certainly, she wouldn't have been keen or enthusiastic about modelling, let's just say, a Louis Vuitton handbag, and parading around like a fashion model. That would have really intimidated her. But with her avatar, she can do that and commercially benefit from that.
Yeah, amazing. I love the way you're breaking that down and opened up the possibility, right, for people to go, you can leverage this in multiple ways and just get things out there and change it, like you said, to be the exact way that you want to. You've shared so much gold with us today, Mark, and I guess as we're starting to wrap up just quickly, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to everybody watching this?
Well, my advice to everyone is not everything works first go. And you might try 1, 2, 3, forays into creating ads. You might put some money into it and you go, oh, it doesn't work. And so many people quit when they're that close to success. Without the failures, you never learn what not to do. And so it's important to understand that failure is an integral component. You know how I talked at the beginning about the crucible of ingredients when you're looking for the right customer? What you must understand that to your success, in the crucible of ingredients that you need to have is failure. And if you don't embrace failure as a step forward in your foray, you will quit too early. And you will normally, most people, even those most enthusiastic, who quit within such a short space of actually accomplishing success. And so my final point I'd say is, if you quit the only guarantee is you will not succeed. But if you don't quit, I guarantee you will succeed.
Yeah, love that. Completely agree. And yeah, we connected through our networks, mate. And you've achieved so much in what you've done. And I love how you've broken everything down today and how you really understand how to cut through the noise and get massive results for your clients. You're an amazing guy. We're sitting here, we're looking at the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House in the background for lighting. We didn't do it that way, but an amazing location. You're an amazing guy, and you're just there to share value and like you said, to really just make a difference in people's lives. And I can really feel that from you. So I'm really grateful that we connected and look forward to partnering and seeing what we can do together to help more people in that. So Mark, if people want to go out there and find you and connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, just go to Instagram and just search me. I think it's Mark_Blundell_, I think. But you'll find me somewhere online.
Beautiful, awesome. Well, everyone, definitely check out Mark on Instagram, connect with him. As you can see, he's an amazing guy, so much knowledgeable if you want some help in that space. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, mate, and thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.